and was able to prove the thesis at a smaller scale that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world, trying to bring them in. And the best way to bring them in, where we've been successful at, is to have a sustainable chain, a big piece. And then a lot of research, as I mentioned, has been published in the Ethereum website. It's a very small subset of the whole Web3 space.
Hello everyone, welcome to the crypto show at Coins Capture. Today we have Pratik Gauri from 5irechain. Welcome Pratik. So
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being with you.
Yeah. So Pratik, let's start with your introduction, and then we'll get to know about 5irechain.
Yeah, so my intro, I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 16, so about 15 years back. And I wanted to kind of prove the thesis that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. So I wanted to kind of work at the intersection of purpose and profit. So work at the intersection of business world and the charity world, because most of the people I met, either people were very heavily centered on profits and they were building businesses, or I found some other people who were kind of from wealthy families who were trying to do charity. So I wanted to figure out a business model where I can work at the intersection of both those worlds, where I can figure out a model which does good to the world and then also makes money to make it very sustainable. So ideally purpose-driven businesses, so not charity, purpose-driven businesses where you end up creating positive impact, net positive impact on the world, and then you make money as well, so that it makes the whole model sustainable. So which was about the fifth industrial revolution, which I've been speaking about for the last more than a decade now, to again prove the thesis that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world, which basically means businesses around, say, climate tech or health tech or renewables are the future of this world, and they're going to end up making more money. So my sweet spots so I've built 8 businesses in the past, and 5ire being my 9th company that I've built. All those 8 businesses were around the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or around the theme of the 5th Industrial Revolution. So UN SDGs are basically global goals by the United Nations. So 17 global goals of sustainable development. SDG 3, for instance, stands for health. SDG 4 stands for quality education. SDG 5 stands for gender equality. SDG 6 stands for clean water and sanitation. SDG 13 stands for climate. So I built 8 businesses around the SDGs. Built my first business, which was an edutech company, when I was 16. And since then, I've been building one after the other around the same theme to actually prove the thesis at a large scale that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. So through the 8 businesses that I built, I was able to impact tens of millions of people, generate tens of millions of dollars, and was able to prove the thesis at a smaller scale that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. But in COVID, I found myself at an inflection point where I wanted to scale this concept to 1 billion people. And that's when I, along with 2 of my other co-founders, we started 5ire, which is again, a sustainable blockchain ecosystem, a layer 1 infrastructure, because we figured out that a layer 1 infrastructure, if it's sustainable, it's the only and the fastest way to actually impact 1 billion people positively, because that's the overarching goal of my life and also of the company now, to actually impact 1 billion people positively and help solve social problems using Web3 or using blockchain or using decentralized technology. So that's what we are trying to build with 5ire. So that's been my journey in a nutshell. Have represented my companies at World Economic Forum in Davos. Have represented my companies at the United Nations General Assembly, Skoll World Forum at the University of Oxford, the Nobel Peace Prize Forum. Did a bunch of that, and now I'm building 5ire to actually work with governments and Fortune 500 companies, so that we can end up creating the 5th industrial revolution at a very large scale, and transition the whole world from a for-profit economy in the age of 4th industrial revolution to a 5th industrial revolution, which is going to follow a for-benefit economy. So I did transition the whole world from for-profit to for-benefit. So that's what I'm into right now.
That's great. That's great to hear from you. So as you were saying about sustainable blockchain, so we would like to know about what sustainable blockchain and 5th generation blockchain is about.
So sustainable blockchain, so look, any blockchain that have been prevalent in the past, whether it was built by Ethereum or Solana, any layer 1 infrastructure, is, as you know, is a blockchain. But what we've done is we have embedded a for benefit paradigm at the heart of blockchain, which means we've changed the consensus mechanism. So any blockchain needs a consensus to work. So we don't use proof of work, or a normal proof of stake. We have basically changed the way consensus would work. So we have developed or invented something called proof of benefit, which ideally embeds the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals into the consensus, scrapes data from about 650 ESG sources, and puts it into consensus to so that the validators, when they're fighting for a node, or when they're trying to enter any input into the node of the blockchain, anybody who has a higher score on the ESG space, or anybody who is doing good to the world, ends up making more money. So it's a different way of building a blockchain. Fifth generation comes from the standpoint of the fifth industrial revolution, where we wanted to transition the world from for profit to for benefit. So fire, in fact, the name also 5ire stands for the fifth industrial revolution. So we are a fifth gen chain where we say we are going to embed for benefit paradigm at the heart of blockchain. We're going to solve social problems using the language of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, using Web3 and blockchain, and in the end prove the thesis of the fifth industrial revolution at a large scale, that you can actually end up making more money if you do more good to the world. So what we've ideally done is we built a sustainable blockchain because we have changed the way consensus works. And any layer 2 protocol now which builds on top of our chain or uses our infrastructure, when they do good to the world, or when they align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal framework, they end up making more money. So in a way, through our infrastructure, in the next few years, we are going to help expedite progress towards the SDGs on one side, and on the second side, transition the world from a for-profit economy in the age of fourth industrial revolution to a for-benefit economy in the age of fifth industrial revolution. So and ideally incentivize all stakeholders financially to actually do good to the world and follow sustainable practices. So it's kind of one of the first mathematical models of the world that we've built, which not only measure sustainability but also financially reward sustainability through the way we've changed the way consensus works. So that's pretty much about the sustainable blockchain piece and the fifth generation.
That's great. That's great. So, as you mentioned about the some of the use cases, so what are the plans for 5irechain? What are the actual real time use cases for 5irechain would be?
So a lot of use cases. We've signed MOUs regarding smart policing, predictive policing. We will be working on putting the employee database on the blockchain. Of course, the immutable feature of the chain actually becomes the most important, the critical piece for the employee database to reside on the chain. Then we're putting degrees and academic credentials on the blockchain. We are working on digital identity, which will end up helping the bankless. And there are about 1.5 billion people who don't have access to banking and credit. So we want to solve the problem of financial inclusion through our chain that we have built. Land registrations being another use case. And multiple use cases that any blockchain would have. The difference that we are trying to do is we are trying to bring the traditional stakeholders into the play, which means banking systems, Fortune 500 companies, governments, so that, because the end goal for us is to impact 1 billion people, and we realize that we cannot do it until we bring the traditional stakeholders, which have been left out of the Web3 space. Until we bring them into the ecosystem, we cannot impact 1 billion plus people and cannot achieve the problem of financial inclusion and cannot even solve social problems. So we're trying to bring them in, and the best way to bring them in, where we've been successful at, is to have a sustainable chain, which not only works on creating a more abundant world but also more greener world. So when you talk about different use cases, I mentioned about smart policing, predictive policing, land registrations, employee database, academic credentials, digital identity. Those are some of them, and then of course there are many more.
Okay, okay. So that's a huge problem you would be solving. So as you like, there are like goals of each and every company of different, like different layer one, layer two solution. So what 5irechain would be doing, like what are the goals which have been mentioned by 5irechain for this?
So there are many, right? So of course, as I mentioned that one goal is to solve us to transition the world from a fourth industrial revolution, which has been following a for-profit economy, to a fifth industrial revolution, which will follow a for-benefit economy by changing the way consensus works. So like I mentioned, it's a novel consensus for the whole protocol. So we use something which is a proof of benefit, which you can also call something like a sustainable proof of stake. So as you know, proof of work, which a lot of blockchains use, and means that you have to spend more computational power to get a block rewarded to yourself, which means it's impossible to be sustainable. Proof of stake, on the other hand, means that you have to spend more money to get a block rewarded, which also means that it's very hard to solve the problem of financial inclusion, where 1.5 billion people have been left out of banking and credit. So we've come up with something called proof of benefit, um, you know where the energy used is way lesser, and with the sustainability getting embedded into the system, anybody who is sustainable ends up making more money. So if you use geothermal and I'm using coal, or you have 50% women into your workforce, and I have 30%. So all of those factors are taken into account when the score is calculated, when the block is getting rewarded to a validator, which means that most of the validators, which will either be Fortune 500 companies and governments, when they use the blockchain, it ends up moving the whole world into a direction which is more sustainable. Then I think the other goal that we have is the scalability piece. So as you know about the blockchain trilemma, most of the L1 solutions that currently exist in the world are battling with scalability, which means the efficiency kind of decreases when there is increased demand in the network. Ethereum has been facing that problem for a long time. Fire has a concept of nested chains. So, the nodes can actually process transactions simultaneously, which means that there are child chains which are deployed in parallel arrangement, which also means parallel processing of transactions. So you can actually scale without affecting the efficiency of the network. So that's another thing. Sustainability being another goal, which I mentioned. So scalability and sustainability would be the two big pieces that the goals of Fire would be. When we are trying to, and then of course transitioning the world from for profit to for benefit, and transitioning the world from fourth industrial revolution to the fifth industrial revolution, where we solve social problems during Web3. I think that's another one. Another goal I think I already mentioned, which is a big one, is to bring traditional stakeholders into the system, which have been currently left out, so that we can achieve the problem of financial inclusion, which means bankers or governments or Fortune 500s.
Right, correct, correct. So you are changing a lot of things, and there would be a sustainable blockchain compared to the recent with the L1 solutions there in the market specifically. So how many users, like how many projects are using 5irechain, or like how many number of nodes are there on the 5irechain right now?
So look, our testnet is going to go live somewhere in November. So I can't comment on other technical specs right now, because we will be launching in November, and that's when we are going to actually release all of this information that you're trying to ask. But I can tell you that a lot of the pieces that we are already working in private mode are, so we have MOUs with the governments regarding smart policing, predictive policing. We're trying to bring, for instance, a company which is like, say, Intex, which is a electronics company, into Web3. So we have innumerable use cases with governments and Fortune 500 companies which we've already signed. We're currently testing with them. But regarding the number of nodes, regarding the speed and all of that, I'll try to reserve my comments until we actually launch our testnet in November.
Okay, okay, that's great. That's great. So, I like the users would like to know about your journey from $100 million of fundraising, and how have you achieved, and how things went for the 100 million fundraising.
So I think we started in August 2021 last year. We raised our first round of $21 million back in October last year. So October of 2021 is when we raised our first round at $110 million valuation. And after that, we kind of started building technology. We did a lot of research. In fact, a research for us on mapping the DAO ecosystem is published on the Ethereum website, and they're kind of using it for Ethereum 2.0. We've now been selected by World Economic Forum into their Global Innovators Unicorns program. We're going to be attending the WEF next year with the white badge. So a lot of, after the August fundraise, we kind of started getting use cases. And as I mentioned, we tried to bring the traditional stakeholders into our orbit, which no other layer one blockchain has kind of been able to do. And the reason being, they've not been sustainable. And so we've kind of been very novel in our approach. And also that's our secret sauce. Where sustainability is going to define profitability being our theme is kind of very new to the space. So we kind of, I would like to call us still one of the first movers in this whole market, with us bringing a sustainable consensus mechanism, a sustainable proof of stake, I would like to say. So, developing the consensus, building a team. So going from a team of, just 5 people about a year back to a team of about 110 people now. And then last month, getting our series A round of $100 million at a $1.5 billion valuation. So that's been kind of the journey for us, with 2 rounds, and us becoming one of the fastest growing blockchain companies and hitting the $1 billion mark really quickly. And I think that's also a big part, actually goes to the piece that we're trying to solve a very, very expensive problem of sustainability, and a very expensive problem actually solving social goals, like climate, or water, or sanitation, or education, or any of those social goals, using technology or using Web3. I think that's why the valuation, we were able to hit pretty high quickly. And also, the belief that we've received, not only from investors but also from our people who are going to end up using our blockchain, whether it's a government or whether it's a Fortune 500 company. So we're working with the Indian government, we're working with the Nigerian agriculture government, we're working with the state of city of Alliance in the state of Nebraska in the United States. So that's, I think, a big piece. And then a lot of research, as I mentioned, has been published in the Ethereum website already. So a big part actually is research for us, and then the other big piece is technology. So I think those are the pieces that have contributed to us being able to raise funds and kind of become a unicorn.
That's great. That's great. So you were mentioning about smart police and the use cases about it. So we had recently seen that you have been collaborated with Goa Police, and would you like to give some brief about it, like how you are
Yeah.
collaborating?
So, there are basically 3 pieces that we are trying to work with them around: data integrity, transparency, and traceability. So those are the 3 pillars. So, one part is actually transforming all their records. So if the police departments, the way they work, they have a lot of physical records. So we're trying to port them into a digital format and then bring them on blockchain, which obviously means that, the accountability, transparency and immutability comes into play, where nobody can tamper with the record, so it stays more safe and secure, which I think is very, very important when you're working with any government. For them, security is most important. So we kind of trying to achieve that through blockchain technology. um, so as I mentioned, whether it's bringing all the records on the blockchain, or whether it kind of trying to work on EFIRs, which can be stored on the blockchain. So there are a lot of use cases that we're kind of exploring them, starting with bringing all the records on the blockchain in about 1 year. So about 10,000 records, and bringing all of them on the blockchain, and kind of that would also make Goa, when we do it, one of, I think, the first paperless police state in India also. So that's going to be a big feat in the India's growth story.
That's great. That's good. Goa is implementing blockchain on a good level. So, being crypto, been dicey, and what are your thoughts on government's approach for blockchain, specifically in India?
So I think the government has been very, very pro blockchain. Whether it's bringing academic records or credentials, or everything has been very, very pro blockchain. And I think that people are actually confused between blockchain and cryptocurrency. But blockchain is a technology. We are a technology, Web3 technology company. And crypto is completely different, where you have a token and all of that. So we are concentrating on building technology for large stakeholders, and building a layer one chain, which can be used by any stakeholder to build anything on top of us, and trying to build a sustainable blockchain. So for us, The market is very, very good, in fact, because as I say, we are one of the first movers. We're kind of one of the only movers that I see which is kind of built a sustainable, innovative layer one solution. So for us, the market is very, very good. When you talk about crypto, it's a completely different ball game. It's a very small subset of the whole Web3 space. So the market can go up and down, but that doesn't matter to us because we are a technology company. We are a Web3 tech company. We're not a crypto company, so there's no effect to us.
Okay. Okay. So, what are your thoughts? Like, are you planning for any token or like, are you planning for IPO in the coming times? Any thoughts about
So
it?
So since we've done the fundraise, we have enough money to kind of build the technology now. So we don't plan to do an IPO in the near future. Of course, I think that's a longer shot when we might do an IPO after 2-3 years. But I don't know now. So I would like to reserve my comments on the IPO piece. We've gone for a traditional house for our fundraise, which also means the adoption is going to be very high. So our goal is to get adopted and solve the problem of 1 billion+ people and do financial inclusion for 1.5 billion people. I think that's our end goal. And so right now we don't have any shortage of any money to build a solution, and the revenues that we are expecting are also pretty good. So the balance sheets look pretty good on paper, at least now. After our mainnet actually goes live next year, that's when we will actually see the kind of revenues coming in. So it depends on, I mean, the IPO actually depends on will be a company decision along with investor decision that we'll make in a couple of years, depending on how much revenue we are able to make and what the kind of returns we are generating from the blockchain company that we've built. So yeah, that's the pretty much the next steps.
That's great. It was great to know more about 5irechain, about you and the use cases you are doing, the things you are changing in real time. So let's wrap up the things with some closing thoughts from you for the blockchain and Web3 industry.
I think blockchain and Web3 industry is I think the next big thing that the world has never seen. It's going to be the biggest revolution that I think, and I think we need a lot of more entrepreneurs to kind of build solutions so that the space can grow quickly, because the space has the ability to transform the way financial systems have worked. The space has the ability to solve social problems using technology of decentralization. The space has the power to give the space has the ability to give the power back to the community. So it's just an amazing space to be in, and I think we need a lot of more entrepreneurs to build solutions so that we can be, or India can be, the epicenter of the whole revolution, and we can transition into the fifth industrial revolution through Web3, where sustainability will actually define profitability, and we move and we make the world not only more abundant but more green, and India being the epicenter for that. I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs which will be needed to build solutions. So I think I would love to invite all the youngsters, especially which are techies, to kind of start learning Rust, Substrate, and all the languages that are getting used in Web3, to kind of start building stuff in Web3, because it's the future and it's actually going to define the way the world works in the years to come, and also help expedite progress towards the UN SDGs by 2030, which means pretty much work on the agenda of the Honorable Prime Minister.
Great, great, great. Thanks for it. Surely people and entrepreneurs like you would help out India to make the epicenter of Web3 and blockchain, and the new coming entrepreneurs, the coders, everyone would be inspired with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.